Hello, everybody. Have a very good evening. We are going to be studying chapter 6 of Masechta Shabbos. And even though we are at home, we will make every effort to be besimcha, to be happy that we are studying Hashem's Torah. Tonight's class is dedicated in loving memory of my dear mother, Rivka Bas Harav Shleima. The Mishna is going to be talking about things that a person can wear out in public, into a public domain on Shabbos. Not everything is considered clothing. Clothing, of course, are allowed, but some things are not allowed. And there's different reasons why something would be allowed to be worn, and different reasons why something would not be allowed to be worn. Things that are allowed to be worn are something that's used to cover oneself for modesty purposes, pants, shirts, etc. Something that is also that protects one from the elements, a scarf from the cold, a hat, so on and so forth. That is allowed, and something that is an ornament. The rabbis prohibited wearing things, certain items, from out in public, and these are things that a person might take off in public. These are things that are either likely to fall, and so a person might forget. Something that can be removed to show others, like a fancy piece of jewelry. Something that a person is embarrassed to wear, and so might subject the person to be made fun of. And so to hide this, he would take it off and perhaps carry it. Something that a person has to remove under certain circumstances. Something that somebody objects wearing, and a certain kind of shoe, which we'll discuss later in the Mishnah. So these are different items that a person cannot wear, and the Mishnahs are going to delineate what can be worn and what cannot be worn. Says the Mishnah, let's jump right into it. What can a woman indeed go out on Shabbos wearing? And what is she not allowed to be worn? What is she not allowed to wear on Shabbos? So the Mishnah continues. She may not wear. Isha woman may not wear pishtan. She cannot wear braids of woolen threads or linen threads or straps on her head. Why? Because because she cannot immerse herself in the mikvah until she loosens them first. And so we're concerned that a woman who's going to mikvah on Shabbos, she'll walk there wearing these items on Shabbos. And then when she gets there, she immerses in the mikvah, and now her hair is wet and they're difficult to replace back on the head. And so therefore we're concerned that such a woman will now walk back home through a public domain while carrying these items. And so therefore the rabbis forbade all women from wearing it, so that a woman will certainly not come to wear it when she's going to the mikvah. She cannot wear a frontlet. This is an ornament worn on the front of the head, like that looks similar to the tzitz that the Kohen Gadol wore on his forehead, and not with head bangles that are dangling in front of her head, as you see in the Middle East sometimes till today, when they are not sewn onto a hat or something. So in such a case, we're concerned that they may be removed. And so therefore, it cannot be worn on Shabbos out in public, not with a forehead pad. This is like a piece of fabric that would protect the head from one of these frontlets that a woman would wear. She would have this fabric so that that it doesn't irritate the forehead. All of these, she cannot go out with a Reshus HaRabim into a public domain wearing these things. And she cannot go out wearing a city of gold. What is a city of gold? It's talking about a gold makeup of Yerushalayim. This was a piece of jewelry that women would wear in those days on their forehead or elsewhere. And again, the reason for this is because we're concerned that she would take it off to show to a friend. Loy v'katlona, with a necklace. This was a necklace that a choker necklace made specifically to make the woman look more attractive by making her look fatter. In those days, women would commonly try to look as fat as possible. Loy v'nzamin, and not with nose rings. Loy v'tabashin alei, and not with a ring that doesn't have a signet on it. Now, if she wore one with a signet ring, this is the way people commonly wear transport a signet, and so that would be Aser Deiraisa. We're talking about here from the rabbis, and so we're talking about one that does not have a seal on it, not with a pin that does not have a hole in it. One with the hole in it would be used for sewing, which is a common way of carrying it. A person who wants to not lose their threading needle would put it into their coat or to their cloak. In yatzas, so here we're talking about one that does not have a hole. So it's only aser derabanan and not deraisa, not from the Torah. In yatzas, and if in any of these cases she indeed violated these rules, she is not liable for a sin offering. Lo yetzei ish. Now the Mishna continues in Mishna Beis. A man may not go out. The sandal musmar, wearing a sandal called a musmar sandal. It had like a spike sticking out. This has nothing to do with Shabbos specifically. This has nothing to do with going out on Shabbos. The rule would be even wearing it on Shabbos indoors. And the reason for this is because when people see this kind of shoe, it makes them sad. Why does it make them sad? Because there was a famous incident that took place in the time when there was a lot of anti-Semitism going on and the Jewish people were being persecuted. They were hiding in a cave, a lot of people, and were wearing these kinds of boots that had these spikes. And they heard a noise and they became frightened and everybody went running out and there was a stampede and people got killed because of these spiked shoes. They were tripping and falling and getting stabbed with these spiked shoes. And so the incident sparked a lot of sadness amongst the Jewish people at the time. Whenever they saw these shoes, they were reminded of this incident. And so the rabbis forbade wearing these on Shabbos because they didn't want people to be sad on Shabbos. You can't wear one shoe on Shabbos because people will suspect that the person has his other one tucked under his coat, and they'll think he's carrying. Furthermore, if we allow somebody to wear only one shoe, we're afraid that once he's out in public or he's out of his house and one of the shoes is bothering him, so he'll take off one shoe and he will carry it. And so, therefore, they said you can't wear one shoe on Shabbos. Can't hop around in one shoe. Unless, because manchein beragli mako. This is only so long as there's not he doesn't have a problem with his foot. The person who's walking around with a crutch, and because he can't walk on his foot normally, so that would be allowed, because that would be obvious that he's not hiding his shoe under his coat. That would be obvious that he's doing this because his foot is sprained. You can't wear tefillin out on Shabbos, unless, of course, you find tefillin, which we already spoke about previously. If you find tefillin on Shabbos, what do? You put them on the tefillin and you go to a private domain and you put it down there. But, ordinarily speaking, you can't wear tefillin out on Shabbos. Now, there's a machlokes, there's a dispute as to whether Shabbos one wears tefillin or not. The halacha is that we don't wear tefillin on Shabbos. But according to the one who says that you could wear tefillin on Shabbos and you should wear tefillin on Shabbos, you're not allowed to wear it out in public. And we're concerned that a person may take off his shalrosh because he wants to go relieve himself on the side of the road, and you're not allowed to wear your shalrosh tefillin when you need to relieve yourself. And so therefore, the rabbis forbade, even according to the ones who are allowed wearing tefillin on Shabbos, you can't wear tefillin out in public on Shabbos. You can't wear an amulet. An amulet, kameya, is something that's worn to bring blessing, and so You can't wear it. You can't wear such an amulet when it's not made by an expert, by a real pious person. When an expert makes it, so you're not likely to get frustrated that it's not working and take it off and carry it. But if it's not made by an expert, you're likely to question, why am I wearing this stupidity? It's not working. The guy doesn't know what he's doing, and I still feel whatever ailment it was there for to heal, and we're afraid you're going to wear it. You're going to carry it. And you can't wear a coat of mail. You can't wear an armor suit, nor a helmet. Why not? Because we're going to be afraid that somebody's going to see you wearing this, and they're going to think that you're using this for a private battle that you have. Now, you're not allowed to go into a private battle on Shabbos. If it's a public battle, the Yidden are in battle somewhere, so of course you can wear it. It's Pekuach Nefesh, and you have to wear it. But a person wants to wage his own battle, he can't be doing this on Shabbos. And so in order to forestall this, to forestall somebody thinking that you're going to do private battle on Shabbos, you can't wear these things. And again, from a Torah perspective, these are protecting you. But the rabbis forbade it from what's called Maras Ha'ayin. Maras Ha'ayin is something that they don't want somebody else to look at and get the wrong impression. Magofayim, you can't wear shin protectors that are used in war. And if he goes out with these, he's not liable for a sin offering. And again, the reason is because from the Torah perspective, these are things that are used to protect you. And so therefore, you would be allowed. But the rabbis, fearing that what somebody else would think in this particular case, did not allow a person to wear this on Shabbos. And so if you wear it, you are violating a rabbinical decree, and not a biblical decree, and therefore you don't have to bring a korban chatas, a sin offering. Gimel, a woman may not go out with a needle that has an eye on it, because this is a bona fide malacha. This is carrying out on Shabbos. This is the way normal people carry a sewing needle, and it's not an ornament, and it's not there to adorn you, and so therefore it's typical carrying. And a signet ring cannot be worn on Shabbos, because that's the typical way of carrying it on Shabbos. And when somebody sees it, you see, she's carrying it. She's not carrying it to look fancy. She's carrying it because that's the normal way of carrying a ring. And she cannot walk around with a spice bundle. These were made usually fancy spice bundles with silver or gold, and those days they didn't have proper hygiene. Men and women stunk, and so in order to alleviate the smell, so they would wear this with spices in it. So they made it like a tabak box you use for the shmek tabak. So you make a nice silver box. So they had a nice silver pouch for the incense. For the spices that would make them smell nice. And she cannot wear a perfume flask on Shabbos, because this is the normal way of carrying these things on Shabbos. Rabbi Meir. That's what Rabbi Meir says. So Rabbi Meir says in all of these cases, she would have to bring a korban chatas if she violated it. The Chachamim disagree on the last 2 points, on the spice bundle and the perfume flask. They say the Chachamim poitrim, the Chachamim b'chayveles of tzlichas shel pulyatim. The spice flask and the perfume flask and the spice bundle, they say that this is an ornament, and they do not require her to bring a chatas. They don't allow it because they were made often fancy, so they're afraid that a woman would take it off to show her friend and carry in the public domain with it. So it's not allowed according to the rabbis, but they say that it's a rabbinical prohibition, not a Torah prohibition. V'yetzi ha'ish, a man may not go out on Shabbos v'keshes, not with a v'sayif, not with a sword, v'keshes, and not with a bow, v'sris, and not with a shield, v'ala, and not with one of these clubs that have a chain and a ball with spikes sticking out. It's a weapon. And not a spear. In Yatza, and if a man goes out with these on Shabbos, Chayav Chatas, he is liable for a sin offering. Rabbi Eliezer disputes this idea, and he says, these are adornments for him. The Chachamim vehemently disagree with this, and they hold like the original, like the first opinion. And they say, Einam elo lignai, they are only a disgrace for a person who walks with these. Shenemar, as it says, V'chitzu charvoisam leitim v'chaniseisehem lemazmeros. It says that you shall, it's a famous verse, they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. No longer will one nation lift up a sword against another nation, nor will they learn any more warfare. This is the famous Isaiah verse that's written at the UN. Biris Tahira. Mishna tells us a new law here. V'yetzin bo b'Shabbos, a garter that a woman wears to hold up her stockings is, first of all, it's tahar, meaning to say it's not susceptible. It's not a garment in that it's susceptible to tumah. It's not susceptible to tumah. And a woman may use it on Shabbos to keep her socks up. Kfolim tmeim, ben yetzin ben b'Shabbos, ankle chains are tamei, and we may not wear them on Shabbos. What are these ankle chains? So these are chains that are training chains that were employed by certain people in order to train young maidens not to walk with big strides, which was considered immodest, and so they would train them with these chains. Now, these ankle chains, now some of them were made fancy in order to encourage them to wear it, and so we're concerned that she may take it off to show the girl, the young maiden, may show it off. Oh, I got my new ankle chains, and they're fancy, and show it to her friend. And being that that's the case, one may not wear it out on Shabbos, lest she take it off and carry it on Shabbos. Hey, a woman may go out wearing hair extensions, whether these hair extensions come from herself, whether they are from her friend, meaning that they originated from her friend, or even if they came from an animal. She may wear a frontlet with sanbutin or head bangles, when they are indeed sewn on. In the earlier Mishnah, we said that she cannot wear it when they're not sewn. And in this Mishnah, we're just saying the converse, that when they are sewn, you can wear them. Indeed, yes, you can wear them. And she could wear a forehead pad or a wig into a courtyard. Now, in the Mishnah times, a woman wearing a wig was not allowed to go out into public, into a public domain. These laws are not kept in our day and age. There's many laws and rules that are allowed, that we disallow in this chapter of Mishnayos that are allowed in today's day and age. So don't take all of this as actual halacha. In addition, she can go out in public and into a public domain with a wad of usually cotton in her ear for an earache, sandola, or wadding and padding in her shoe, or with a sanitary pad for a woman, the pilpil with pepper in her mouth, that was to mask her bad breath, or gagir melech, or with a lump of salt in her mouth, which was used to alleviate a toothache, or anything else that she puts into her mouth to alleviate pain. So long as she does not, to begin with, put this in on Shabbos, because this is considered as treating a minor ailment. And when you treat a minor ailment, you're not allowed to treat minor ailments on Shabbos for various reasons, which we're not going to go out into right now. And if these items fall out of her mouth on Shabbos, and they fall on the floor accidentally, she cannot put it back into her Shabbos. It's considered treating a minor ailment. She can take it out on purpose and put it back, but if it falls out, it doesn't go back in. A false tooth or a golden tooth may not be worn out on Shabbos in public. Rabbi Meir, this is what Rabbi Meir says. The opposite. Shein Teiseves, the Shein Shel Zahav, she can wear out on Shabbos. The Chachamim disallow it. Again, in today's day and age, these are permanently fixed into a person's mouth, and they're not typically taken out to show your friend. So we don't follow these laws. But again, the Chachamim disallow it. The false tooth, we're concerned that she's going to hide it, take it out, because she doesn't want to let somebody else know that she's wearing a false tooth, and she subjects herself to ridicule. The gold tooth is the opposite. We're concerned she's going to take it out and show a friend her fancy new gold tooth. Mishna Vav, she can go out with a sela, as a coin, in her shoe that's protecting a bunion from rubbing against her shoe from rubbing against the bunion, and it would protect her from pain. Young girls may go out with the threads and slivers that are in their ears. They would pierce the ears when they were young, but they generally wouldn't be able to afford fancy gold earrings. And so they would just put in an item, a sliver, to keep the ears from closing back up. And so little girls wouldn't take this out. This wasn't considered fancy. Plus, taking out earrings is a little more complicated. And so we weren't concerned that they would take it out in any case. So earrings, as we mentioned earlier, would be allowed. It was only the nose rings that were prohibited in those days. Arabic women can go out, women who live in Arab countries, that is, Jewish women, can go out wearing their veils and cloaks, that cover their heads. Madi's face, and the Madian women can go out with their cloaks over their shoulders. And this indeed is the case with all people. Now, you don't have to come from Arabia. If you want to wear a cloak over your head, you can do so. And even if you're not from Madda, you can cloak. A man could wear his jacket over his shoulders in a public place. So why do we use these examples of these people? Not sure where we went off, so we'll go back just a drop. Where in Mishnah Daled, a person cannot go out on Shabbos. A man cannot go out not with a sword, not with a bow, not with a shield, not with a wooden club with a round ball on it, with spikes, not with a spear. And if he goes out, he is liable for a chatas offering. Rabbi Eliezer disputes this, and he says he wears it to adorn himself. And so he says that he would not be chayav chatas. The Chachamim agree with the first Tana, and they say Einun el l'gnai. It is only a disgrace for a person to wear these items and to use these items. Shenemar, as the famous pasuk from Isaiah says, "V'chitzu charvoisem liitim v'chaniseiseichem lemazmeiros leyisagoyel becherev leyilmudu oid milchama." And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. One nation shall not lift up a sword against another nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Birdis Tahira. Now, a garter, this is a belt that's worn around the thighs in order to hold up stockings, is Tahar, is not susceptible to ritual impurity. The Shabbos, and one can wear it out on Shabbos. So a woman can wear one of these garters to hold up her stockings. Kvolin, ankle chains. Tmeim, they are susceptible to Tuma. Ve'ein yetzimem b'Shabbos, and one cannot go out with it on Shabbos. Ankle chains were designed to train young girls and maidens to walk with shorter strides. Big strides was considered somewhat immodest, and so they would train them with these chains that they, much like you see shackles, like you have in today's days for prisoners. So they had nicer ones, and these were training maidens. They may not be worn out on Shabbos. We're concerned that since they were made beautiful, a girl might take them off and show her one of her friends that she's wearing her new training anklets. Mishna Hey. Yates, in contrast to the previous Mishnas, we were saying what she cannot go out wearing. So in this Mishnah, Yates Isha B'chutei Seir, a woman can go out with hair extensions. Bein Mishalah, Bein Mishal Chaverta, whether these hair extensions originated from her own hair or from her friend. Bein Mishal Behema, or if they didn't even come from a human altogether. One would still be allowed to wear it on Shabbos. Or with a tefes, or with a frontlet. Uve sanbutin, or with head bangles. Bisman shein tfurin, in a time when they are sewn in. So earlier on we were speaking about when they're not worn, you can't wear it. Now we're saying the opposite. When they're worn, when they're sewn in, then it could be worn. The chovel, or with a forehead pad, uve peonachris, or with a wig, l'chotzer. These items can only be worn into a chotzer. Now, it's important to, before we go further, I should have mentioned this earlier actually, many of the laws that we talk about here in the Mishnah, in today's chapter, are actually not followed exactly this way anymore. Because times have changed. In those days, jewelry, for example, one of those chokers that we explained earlier on, one of those was not typically worn. It wasn't something that people wore during the weekdays and the common person was able to afford. And being that that's the case, it was a unique item that somebody would take off and show to their friend. But today it's almost unheard of that somebody in a public thoroughfare would remove their necklace to show one of their friends. And so the custom has become, not sure exactly when and how, and different commentaries struggle to find out exactly when this changed. But the common practice is to not follow these laws of this Mishnah here. So now, here we're talking about a wig. A wig, in today's day and age, of course a woman could go out with a wig out in public. But in those days, a woman could not do that. So she could only go into her courtyard with it. Further, with cotton that's pushed into her ear, or with some sort of cotton or other fabric that is in her shoe or in her sandal, or with a female sanitary pad, So all of these things she can go out with bipilpil or with pepper in the mouth. That was used to deal with bad breath. V'gargir melech, or with a small ball of salt, which was used for a toothache. Or with anything, any spice that she would put into her mouth. So long as she doesn't put it in on Shabbos to begin with, because all of these items are used to cure minor or to treat minor ailments. Now, minor ailments are not to be treated on Shabbos. And the reason for this is because there's lots of violations of Shabbos that can happen when one treats minor ailments. Different things, people would crush different minerals in the old days, or pills in the old days. And so crushing would be a violation of Shabbos. And so all these medicines and all these cures for minor, or treatments for minor ailments, were prohibited on Shabbos. And if it fell out of her mouth onto the floor, she should not put it back on Shabbos. If she took it out intentionally, she could put it back in. A false tooth, or one with a gold crown, Rabbi allows for it, and the Chachamim disallow. Because in those days, again, this was something that something that wasn't of gold, that she was just using to cover her tooth, she wouldn't take out, but she might be embarrassed about it, that she's wearing it. The gold one, she might be excited about it and show it to a friend. So these items the Chachamim disallowed. And again, today's day and age, a crown doesn't come out of your mouth. It's fixed in there permanently, whether it's gold, silver, whatever it is. And so the laws are different today. You're not going to take it out of embarrassment, and you're not going to take it out to show off to your friend. Yates, a woman may go out besela with a coin. Sha'al hatzinis, that is bound to the sole of her foot to protect against a painful bunion. Habonis ktanes yates bechutin mafilu likismin b'shebozneim. Young girls can go out with threads or slivers in their ear. This was put in the ear after the ear was pierced. So if you leave the ear unpierced, if you leave the ear, it can close back up. So they had these little strings, threads, or slivers that they would leave in the ear so that the ear doesn't close back up. So they can wear that on Shabbos. RVAs, women living in Arab countries, can go wearing one of those veils over the head. Umadiyas, perufais, and women from Modai can go with cloaks over their shoulders, just draped over their shoulders. Now, because that was the style there. And the Mishna says, the truth of the matter is, it's not just Arab women and Median women, or women too. Anybody could wear that. So if it's hot, you're walking to shul and you have a jacket on, and now it's getting really hot, you could take it off and you could put the jacket over your shoulders and continue walking even in a public domain. So why did the Mishnah use an example of Arab women or women from Madai? Because they're just giving an example of what was more common in those days. A cloak that she wears over her shoulders and wants to button with a makeshift with a makeshift button, so she may fasten such a cloak, ala even with a stone, ala eges or with a nut, ala matbeya or with a coin. But with the coin, she can't do this on Shabbos because a coin, of course, is muktzah on Shabbos. So if she's going to use the muktzah for this purpose, she has to set this contraption up before Shabbos. Hakiteya Mishna Ches. An amputee yetze bekav shaloi dibri Rabbi Meir. He may go out with his wooden foot. Now, this is not a wooden foot that is used for him to walk on. It's one that hides the fact that he has a wooden foot. This is one that would be used with alongside crutches. But Rabbi Yesi does not allow for this. The crutches he would allow because that's necessary for the person to walk. But this false foot that we're talking about here is not one that is able to be used for actual walking, and so therefore Rabbi Yosef doesn't allow for it. What is his concern? His concern is that because he doesn't need it to walk, if it falls off or if it starts bothering him, he's going to pick it up and put it under his arm and then continue walking. And so he disallows it, and that's the halacha. But only if it's used for him to actually walk on, then he can use it. Otherwise, he cannot. If this wood foot has a place, a cavity where you stuff in fabric or some other padding to pad so that the foot, while it's in there, doesn't get irritated or it doesn't bother the foot. So now it's a wooden item that has a place to hold something. Says the Mishnah, Tomei, it is susceptible to ritual impurity. Wooden items, and we're going to learn about this many times throughout the 6 orders of Mishnah, wooden items are not susceptible to Tumah unless they are able to house something, unless they're a receptacle. Pshutei chli'etz, wooden items that don't hold anything are not susceptible to tumah, to ritual contamination. Smoichei shaloi, his knee pads. We're talking about a cripple who is missing both feet and he walks along on his legs, on stumps, and he has pads of leather or boards under his knees, and that's how he gets around. Tmei midras are subject to midras contamination. Midras contamination is a contamination that applies to a nida woman or a man who's a zav or a woman who's a zava. These are types of impurities, and so the midras is anything that they would sit on or lay on or support themselves on. All of these are susceptible to what's called midras tumah. And so all of these would, because it's supporting this cripple, so it's subject to this type of midras tumah. And he can go out with it on Shabbos because this is what he needs to walk on. And he can also go into the temple courtyard. A person is not allowed to wear shoes in the temple courtyard. But these are not considered shoes to that degree, and so he can go into them. Kisei, a stool. This is a stool for the amputee. The smoichei shaloi, and it supports. Tmei and midras are also, of course, supporting him and are therefore susceptible to midras contamination. And you cannot wear them on Shabbos. You cannot go out on them on Shabbos. And and it's also he cannot go out. He cannot go into the azara, into the temple courtyard wearing them. Ankantmin, tahirin, ein face masks, perhaps one that are used like to scare children or Purim or whatever it is. cannot be worn on Shabbos. Now, in today's day and age, when we're dealing with the coronavirus, it's a very good question as to whether or not a person can go out wearing one of these masks on Shabbos. Now, if there's an Eruv, of course, like we have here in Fairlawn, so it's not an issue. If there is no Eruv, it actually is somewhat of an issue. And the best thing would be is, first of all, keep your social distance from people. And if you're concerned and you want to wear a mask, so wear a scarf would be the way to go. And you can protect your face with this scarf. Habonim, Yetzin, Biksharim. Boys, young boys can go out wearing laces. These are laces, these are not regular laces. These are, if a son would separate from his father, so his father would tie him on a lace around him, around his arm, and he would say, "You'll remember me, don't miss me too much. You'll remember me when thinking about these, when you feel these laces." It was like they have for children comfort blankets. So this was like a comfort item for young boys. Uvenei Malachim, princes. Girls would miss their mother typically, but they would stay with their mother. Boys, when their father would leave, they would miss their father. So that's why the Mishna uses the term boys. Bnei Malachim, princes, can go out bezugin with bells. Not bells that actually make noise, but these are ornaments that he can wear. And these, by the way, go for all people, not just princes, not just young boys. Rather, as we mentioned before, the Chachamim use examples that are more common. A person can go out wearing a locust egg, or with Shane Shul, or with a fox's tooth, or a masmir minat soluv, or with a nail from a gallows, mishum refuah, because of the purpose of healing. Now, you may be wondering, what the heck is going on here? So, it's not clear whether they were superstitious, these were superstitions, or placebo effect, but apparently, doctors would prescribe this for people. So, the locust egg, supposedly wearing a locust egg would cure an earache, and a fox's tooth would keep you awake. It was somehow like a caffeine, and the nail from a gallows would somehow relieve fever. That's what doctors in those days would prescribe. I guess they didn't have Tylenol or Advil. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. The Chachamim say something very interesting. Not only do they not allow going out on Shabbos with this, so you're not allowed to use it even in the weekday. Because this is the ways of the Amorites. This is the Chukas HaGoyim. These are what Goyim do, and it has no efficacy. And that's it. And it's just superstitions, and we are not allowed to adopt the superstitious ways and the nonsense of our heathen fellows. So that concludes today's chapter. Once again, there's another video before this that we played. For some reason, we got disconnected, and so we started again. Please join us next week at the same time, but we pray that it won't be in the same place. We'll be in Shul, and our whole Shul, and all of the Yidden will be moved to Eretz Yisrael with the coming of Mashiach, B'mheira, B'yameinu Mamish. Have a very good evening.